Okay, so hold on. All right, ladies and gentlemen, well, thank you so very much for bearing with us. I hope everybody is safe and well during the challenges we see ourselves in this environment. And so we thought we'd bring together a webinar that would be interesting to you all, that focuses on risk and risk management. So joining me today, I have Kim Dowling, who is the head of our Treasury practice, myself, Haresh Chaya, who is the North America Solution Owner for Treasury, and Mike Lucente. I apologize for that noise in the background. I don't know what that is. See if we can.
Stopped.
It stopped. All right. So let's keep going. So as I said, we are going to focus today on Treasury and risk management. We're going to talk about various aspects of Treasury and risk. And let's see if we can get through here, and we'll see. So just some quick reminders, as always, housekeeping items. We are recording the webinar. And if we continue to have the noise, we'll probably re-record the webinar for you so that you can download it. Feel free to ask some questions throughout the session, and that'd be great. And then download the previous webinars from our homepage. Here you can go to the bramasol.com webpage, check out some information on Treasury and risk, as well as other areas. And then you can contact us at bramasol.com/Facebook and others. So let's go ahead and move forward. We got rid of the noise. So what I'd like to do is cover in our agenda today. We have several types of risk. So let's talk about risk given the situations and issues that we find ourselves in today with the COVID-19 and the impact to the economy, and with more and more people going remote. So we'll talk about risk, and then I'm going to hand it over to Kim, to our what I'll call our illustrious panel here, to Kim, Haresh, and Mike, who will talk a bit and take us through what SAP can do for us in the space of Treasury and risk management. So going backwards to, or taking a step back, let's think about the types of risk that we see today. We're all very familiar with the different types of risk. Financial risk, we know about that. We'll talk about that. We talk about security risk, and there's also geopolitical risk. And then, what I realized, and in talking with my colleagues and seeing what's going on, there's really a new kind of a risk, or risk that we didn't realize was out there, and that is business continuity risk. So we'll talk for a quick few seconds about, well, what exactly are these things? From a financial risk, I think we all know financial risk, that involves cash, right? What are your cash risks? Do you have trapped cash? Do you have trapped cash in places where you can't get it out right now? Do you have foreign exchange risk? What are the fluctuations in foreign exchange doing? What about commodity risks? We recently saw the dramatic drop in the price of oil. We've been watching as the stock market goes up and down, but both gold and silver and precious metals are fluctuating. How do you protect yourself? What exposures do you have? We're not talking about just regular foreign exchange exposures, market exposures. That's all in there, and we'll talk about that. But what other exposures? We'll have Haresh and Mike will talk a little bit in a little while about the exposures due to things like counterparty risk. What are your exposures in banks? What are your exposures in the lending institutions or pseudo banks? What are your exposures on the other end to your partners or customers? And so that lends itself to credit risk. What are your credit risks? What are the credit risks for your customers? Security. In this age where we're seeing more and more remote working, seeing more and more move towards mobile devices, we have security risks. Areas such as data. How do I secure the data in light of GDPR, the California Privacy Act? Also, how do I secure as we move more and more into healthcare HIPAA data, how do I do that? How do I secure my systems? How do I harden my systems so that people don't come in and do ransomware and take over my systems? How do I secure my people? How do I ensure that their safety, their personal safety is taken care of? How do I secure my property? And importantly now, what we're also seeing is how do I secure my reputation and my brand? All forms of security. From a geopolitical perspective, we look at areas such as taxes. What are the effects going to be on taxes? And what happens with regard to that? Tariffs. We know that the China trade prior to the recent COVID, but China trade, Brexit, the redoing of NAFTA with Canada and Mexico all has an effect on tariffs. Trade, again, we talked about that. What have been the effects currently on supply chain? And you can check out some great videos and great material, by the way, from SAP on how they're helping with supply chain, so trade. And then political risks, embargoed nations, Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, all of that. So all of those will play into, but a new kind of a risk came out, and I thought it was interesting to talk about, is business continuity risk. And the business continuity risk is all about how do I keep the lights on? How do I ensure that my business continues regardless of the events that might happen, whether those events are natural events and natural disasters, man-made disasters, whether they are utility shutdowns. We look at what happened recently in California, and we look at other places where we're not sure of a consistent electrical supply, water supply, what happens in the events of shortages, what happens for intentional sabotage or other community areas and issues and challenges, connectivity, processes. How do I secure my people? How do I make sure they're good and have the tools they need to continue their job? How do I ensure my processes have managed that and that I can ensure that I can still do what I need to do, whether it's paying bills, allocating cash, managing cash, now in a remote work environment? How do I make sure those processes continue? How do I ensure my supply chain continues? What do I do about my equipment? How do I ensure my equipment is safe and of course my building is safe? So all of these things are elements that we need to think about. But today we're going to focus primarily on aspects of what SAP has available for you as it relates to helping manage your business from the perspective of cash management, credit risk. And so I want to thank again Haresh, Kim, and Mike for joining me. I think we've got a really robust opportunity here for you to learn. And so Kim, without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Hi, John. Thank you. So that was a very good introduction today, and some of the world that we know in the businesses is becoming a lot more complex and volatile than some cases that we've experienced in some of our lifetimes. And right now, we have improving our businesses and efficiency is very important to us today. So the role of Treasury is becoming more critical than ever, and the role is evolving from that tactical role, acting as a strategic partner and advisor to the business. And that's whether you're a cash manager, a financial risk manager, or it could be the CFO, your team is now expected to really step up and drive these capabilities. So when we look at these improving business decisions and efficiency, we're looking at managing our cash, looking at those real-time data views and the enterprise-wide management, and making sure we have those up-to-date liquidity plans, or making use of an in-house cash management or your payment factories, where you can look at your streamlining your processes, where we're now automating Treasury processes. We're enhancing all that operational quality of our processes and our data to make proper decisions and better decisions we've made in the past, especially in the volatile world that we're living in right now. Or actually looking how can we lower those banking costs by looking at the in-house cash scenarios, payment factories, and so forth, or hooking up with multi-bank connectivity for making our payments without having to continue with our current interfaces to do it directly to the banks. On-demand reporting, which one of our colleagues, Julio, can get into in other conversations if you listen to us online, where we get into all the different reporting that we can do within SAP. And more importantly, how do we mitigate risks? looking at all those analysis, which we're going to get into later into the presentation today, but now some of our key performance indicators, looking at our treasury processes. How can we improve our regulatory compliance and support all of our treasury requirements, and for all of our decisions, our efficiency, and look at risk mitigation. Okay, John. Within our treasury and risk management solutions, our treasury is one of the components at the digital core, where we have all of our payments and our bank communications, our working capital management, our cash and liquidity planning, our debt investments, and financial risk. And that actually is surrounded by having all of our interfaces, where it happens to be our trading platforms, looking at, as I talked about earlier, multi-bank connectivity, looking at our regulatory reporting, market data, all the various analytics that we need, whether it be blockchain or machine learning, and all under the umbrella of looking at all of our governance and risk and compliance surrounding our solutions.
Okay, maybe Haresh can take a moment and talk about this in the terms of, Haresh, I love how you talk about the Treasury ecosystem. And maybe you can take a moment to comment on that. We might have lost Haresh.
We might have.
Sorry, I was starting to talk on mute. Thank you, John and Kim.
Thank you. Right.
Again, for those of you who have not been exposed to me, I like to use that. My name is Harish. I'm part of SAP Solution Management Organization. So the challenges that today's CFOs and treasurers are facing are not limited to one area or the other. As John was referring to, these challenges are coming from a variety of different areas in the organization. And that is exactly why an ecosystem approach has come to more prominence, where you need to be able to understand what's going on in one area of your company, reflect it in terms of the exposure that you have in Treasury, and act on it, and make sure that the other responsible organizations and parties in the ecosystem are also acting accordingly, so that you can benefit from everybody's collective approach. And that is exactly why this ecosystem of Treasury processes that we have built over the last couple of years is very powerful for our customers to address the issues of today. And very quickly at the center, you see the digital core, which is a Treasury solution set, surrounded by all these different products and solutions from SAP as well as non-SAP entities, which offer API-based plugin into our ecosystem. And you can run end-to-end processes around payments, cash management, debt and investment management, and risk management all put together.
Perfect.
John?
Thank you. Yep. Haresh, great. Thank you. Maybe you can talk for a moment, Haresh. We show the digital core, but I think one of the great aspects of what SAP has brought to the table is the new way to interface with the user experience, the user interface. Maybe you can take a moment to talk to people and about the enterprise treasury dashboards.
Sure. So what you're seeing on the screen are just a subset of a variety of dashboard applications that SAP has delivered. You can read through some of these labels here. They refer to bank relationship, managing bank fees, position, cash management, debt and investment management, risk management, and so on and so forth. And if you had a lot of time in the world, I would have shown you exactly what is underneath. But essentially, what you need to appreciate from this screen is SAP has made huge investments in making the data that SAP always had on its ERP platform available for treasurers to make actionable items. And that is where you can look at the analytics from accessing one of these apps, make some decisions, and go right into taking actions.
Absolutely. That's what I love about this, and I wanted to highlight and show this early, is in an environment where the constant change is the norm, having this information at your fingertips is absolutely crucial. I'm going to ask Mike Lucente, who spends a lot of time in front of customers, just to comment quickly. Mike, what are the reactions you get when customers see these dashboards?
Yeah, no, thanks, John. So yeah, this really is a game changer, because what we have here are a number of different tiles or applications that we, that's what we call them now in the Fiori, that we have high-level KPIs, right, where we get our quick data that we need. But from these KPIs, users do have that ability to drive and drill into the detail and then take action, whereas what we've seen in the past, there's a number of different reports pulling from different systems, combining them in Excel and massaging the data to then go ahead and take action. This is really your one-stop shop where you can get your quick information and act from that high-level information down to that granular level of detail.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mike. All right.
Thank you, Haresh and Mike. And now I'm going to, whoops.
Yeah, we're going to just go to the next.
Thank you.
We're good.
Sorry, I'm having a little bit of allergy today, so I'm coughing a little bit. So right now, to continue on with our treasury and risk management solutions, I want to talk a little bit about some of the benefits of the payment and bank communications. Within our payment and bank communications, as you can see here, we do like to utilize the in-house cash to be able to create that virtual bank to better manage our internal payments when we can. So we can actually look at internal banking operations, so we can actually drastically reduce some of our external financial costs, which I talked about in one of my other presentations when we were talking about Payment Factory. Or we could also go ahead and net those intercompany activities before turning on to our external financial service providers. Or we can concentrate our working capital, reduce our related carrying costs by not leaving all that money sitting there idle within our bank accounts when we have that straight through visibility. So we know what our liquidity is and what our inflows and outflows are at any moment, which is aided by our ability to have a straight through processing and connectivity from our operations directly through our payment routing with the bank. So in this pictorial here, is where we have all within SAP, whether it be on premises or in the cloud, all of our payment activities, payables, receivables, our payroll, our treasury type activities, or payments that were facilitated within the in-house cash, and going in through our SAP's multi-bank connectivity, which you can go directly with the banks, or you could physically use that with the actual using the SWIFT network.
Sorry about that.
That's right. Okay. And then within the other item that I wanted to talk about with is our FSCM credit collection disputes management. That's another area which is generally we are involved with when we're dealing with our accounts receivable. I've spent a lot of time here in this area, which I really found a lot of benefit from it. And because SAP's intention here is to provide business benefit through improving our working capital. And the chief thrust is to actually to increase our speed of customer payments, reduce the number of debitors that we have, and for the reasons for not to pay, and to maintain the components are really just our credit management, our collections management, disputes management, and also comes along with our electronic invoices. So if I break it apart, our credit management is within SA4. It's a little bit different than we've had in the past with the SAP credit management because it really aims to become a central function that is really a distributed environment where it actually brings together the other areas such as our CRM systems, our external logistics systems, both the SD and non-SAP systems, and it can present those results in the system even through their portal. It's a lot more in S4. It's really a lot more exciting than what I have experienced in my past experience where I have all that visibility of my credit management and I get my hands on it and see what's going on. Collections management, on the other hand, is where it's a module that actually allows organizations to manage their individual AR accounts. In the cases where we have bulk denning may not be effective, it's actually an efficiently tool for our AR clerks, which aim to actually create that prioritized work list for their key customers and keep their list of accounts for action so they can keep on seeing what their collection issues are. And then the dispute management, which is straight through the collections, where it's a module where you can actually aim to reduce all that time spent handling all your disputes between your companies and their customers. It actually allows to have a credit control clerk and actually spend about 50% of their time of dealing with these cases. And it also aims to speed up that amount of time to collect cash from the customer and reduce all that time spent sitting there chasing after customers.
Yeah, and I think this is really great stuff, Kim, particularly in the perspective of where we find ourselves today. Some simple tools that customers can take advantage of to help proactively manage, their customers, proactively manage credit, understand, the risks that they're taking on, but also to give them an opportunity to be more flexible. Haresh, any thoughts on that?
No, John, I think you hit the nail on the head. Essentially, in today's world, considering the circumstances, these three components being tied to Treasury solutions in SAP is offering very significant benefits to customers. And I can give you one example. What if you are able to track the effect of the virus around the world and be able to assess which groups of customers are more vulnerable, and also tie it to the incentives offered by the government so that you can renegotiate some credit terms with them. For example, if you have payables pending and you have certain other regions where you can collect faster, maybe there are certain industries where actually there's over demand than usual. If you can accelerate some payments from there, drive them in the direction of where there's a deficit or shortfall, you can actually use your own finances to keep liquidity intact. And that is exactly why the integrated SAP solutions, which tie your supply chain activities with credit collection, dispute, and treasury and liquidity, are becoming more and more important and valuable to customers. This is exactly why a treasury in isolation is in a much worse shape than a treasury that is completely integrated with the rest of the core ERP solutions.
Great point. Great point. All right, Kim, cash management. One of my favorite things, cash.
Mine too. Cash is king. Cash management, I like to look at it more so in an in-house cash or a payment factory, because the automation of cash management, by utilizing the in-house cash or a payment factory, also supports our global payment and our remittance standards. It also helps us also consolidate our inquiry messaging, our reporting, and our controls, which are always very important and dear to my heart, and also enables management of our payments lifecycle, which is all the way from the initiation of that payment straight through to the payment and reconciliation. We have the proper straight controls all the way through that process within the tools of BCM, the workflows, and so forth, to meet those audit and compliance requirements and help tighten our controls. All the way, it's all role-based, ensures our separation of duties are enforced, which is really great, because if a lot of our teams are very, they don't have they're very lean, if you will. And so it allows us to also, with those workflows, we can actually make sure that we're always in compliance, and also allows us that flexible search criteria and looking at different transaction limits. So with this, we have real-time global access to all that transactional information or account balances by consolidating all those payments and cash management positions into one single view and one interface within the AP and AR subsystems that allows us to integrate all those outgoing and inbound funds on a daily basis. So we can react to those changing business conditions, so we can achieve our future growth, rather be in our current situation or looking forward into that future.
One of the questions that has come up in the past, and Mike Lucente, I know you're out there, you and I talked earlier this week about counterparty risk. Maybe you can share some of your insights on customers and what you see going on in that space.
Yeah, so thanks. So for counterparty risk, yeah, we are seeing a number of different customers take advantage of what is available within SAP, and this really falls under the analyzers. There's a number of different tools that SAP offers under Treasury and Risk Management to go ahead and look at your counterparty risk, meaning what specific financial institution do we have debt with? Do we have investments with where we're trying to get paid back? And even at a higher level, which is very applicable to what's going on today, what regions of the world are we going to have trouble getting cash out of? And what we can do is really highlight that within what we call the credit risk analyzer to look at the counterparty risk, take into account credit ratings, take into account different balance sheet information that we might have on different institutions, and then take into account some of the geopolitical activity that's happening in those individual countries. So it really does give you a wide view of cash and your ability to receive your cash globally.
Right. Great. Thanks, Mike. Kim? One area that we see a lot about, of course, is risks and controls. And you can talk a little bit about this, and we'll talk a little bit about maybe highlighting some of the SOD and SOX compliance.
Yeah, this is a really important area to all companies about improving your risk and controls as it relates to all of your transactions, your payments, and your payments and your receivables. And when you actually are looking at implementing a banking solution, rather it be an in-house cash / payment factory, you're really looking at transforming from that manual or semi-manual process to a more automated process that gives you that full visibility, with that results of that straight through processing through that whole life cycle that I had talked about earlier. So now you actually have your banking solutions, or now you're having you can use your multi-bank connectivity, which removes that risk and eliminates a lot of your errors. You have that secure integration straight with your ERP. It's straight through processing. Your banks are able to adapt to that standardized solutions. And now you've also reduced the number of transaction costs and fees. But most importantly, you've strengthened your internal controls. It's not just that real-time visibility of all your cash flows, but you fully integrated those payments into that platform. You have standardized approval processes and workflows, which enforces that separation of duties. The payments aren't going to go out the door automatically by themselves or have any rogue payments that are going to actually be processed. You have that full control at all time, proper separation of duties, which fully supports your SOX legal and regulatory compliance and reporting. So when those auditors come knocking, you can actually show them how you actually are having full visibility, control, and separation of duties around all your payments for your company. That's not just your payments that are operational related. That's also all your treasury payment activities as well, which goes along with this.
Right. And it's not just your manual payments, it's all your automated payments, all the payments that you're looking at.
All of them. Which is very, very helpful. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So with our streamlining of processes, our risk management capabilities are enhanced with these streamlined processes, which we're going to get to within shortly. And where, like, excuse me, where we have our centralization, leveraging all of our technology, we're actually looking at such as our cash position, looking at one exposures, and where one exposure facilitates collection and storage of our operational data funds. And we can actually sit all across the companies and all of our external sources as well. Where in the optimization, we're looking at integrating our processes and automation solutions. You have your machine learning, your artificial intelligence, which we talked about earlier, reducing all of our dependencies, if you will, on those manual activities. So now we've been able to free up our personnel to actually not be actually looking at all the processing details, but actually looking at the data so they can make informed decisions. And with the agility, we're building the ability to rapidly adapt to all the changing conditions that we're having, like we're dealing with right now in the world today. And so we can make real-time actions to actually optimize all of our cash, not leave cash on the table. We can actually fund easily, knowing we actually have to create credit facility, if we have to do third-party loans, intercompany loans, whatever funding we need to do, or take advantage of the interest rates that we have right now and make proper investments. With that full visibility, we have the real-time cash visibility of our cash. Now we know where our cash is, and then we can take a look at all those analytical tools that SAP offers to us. So we can actually be able to forecast where our business needs to be. So without those streamlined processes, we're not going to be able to readily react or manage our business effectively.
Absolutely. And this also goes to something that we'll talk about in future webinars. And I know Haresh and I and some of his colleagues and I have all talked about this concept of comply, optimize, transform. And the idea right here is you've really created the foundations for your ability to maximize your transactions, ensure that your transactions are accurate, secure, and timely. And then you can begin to look at your processes and do process automation, and finally look at transformation. And we'll spend some time in future webinars talking about that.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite areas to talk about. I just want to wrap up the area of our payment, our streamlined processes and the benefits of them. Of course, with cash management and our streamlined processes, now we have, as John was alluding to, we have the real-time insights of all of our data, all of our processes, our cash, our forecast. We have full visibility into our organization's cash flow. We have one single version of the truth. We're not in one system. We're not waiting for something else to interface and somebody to push the button to record all of our inflows or outflows or record our journal entries. It's all real time, all data from all our multiple sources and all of our disparate sources all in one place. We also have the ability to simplify our payment management. We can able to connect with all of our multiple banks. We can use different payment standards or formats that we might want to do. Intercompany payments as well. They're all optimized and use of our full working capital across the whole organization. That's all I wanted to say about the streamlining of our processes before we got into risk. Haresh or Mike, do you want to add a little bit more to this? They might be on mute.
No,
No, I think I'm there, Tim. So, I would just make a comment around, streamlining the processes. So, the more streamlined your processes are, the more visibility they give you. And the more visibility you get, the more actionable data you have. And the more actionable data you have, better control and better compliance automatically flows through. So I think they're all connected. And you need to look at all of these into a complete end-to-end transformation effort. And I know when people talk about transformation, they think, oh, it's going to take me X number of months or years or whatever their business is. No, it doesn't take that much. If you comply to the standard delivered SAP practices, then you can quickly get to the streamlined processes in a very short span of time. So, anytime we talk about transformation, we are already putting on the table the leading practices that will help you get there very fast and get the benefits fast enough. So it's not a scary word as it used to be in the past.
Exactly. I have to full-heartedly agree with that because, just automating your payments, automating your receivables, beautiful. There you are. You've got full visibility of your payables and receivables. It takes very little to ensure that now you have the visibility in your cash position where you didn't have it before. And it's not complex.
Yeah. Mike, any thoughts from you?
And another thing, just to kind of piggyback on that, one of the things that we we talked about earlier is the SAP Treasury ecosystem, and that really is big when it comes to deployment because we do have all of these native integrations, not only with the obviously the SAP ERP system, but with trading platforms that Treasuries use, like FXall, 360T, and Bloomberg. We just have plug-in solutions for that. Also, market data providers. Those integrations are pre-built, they're pre-delivered, they come with our solution. And also the multi-bank connectivity. We have a pre-built solution where you can connect to all your financial institutions. We see as part of deployment, these are usually some of the things that take a little bit longer because you are dependent on building interfaces, testing your interfaces, working with the third parties to ensure that we're all on the same timeline. And what SAP has done as part of their ecosystem was really just figure out a way to shortcut that and work directly with these third parties as an integrated solution. And that's what really we mean by the whole ecosystem.
Thanks.
You just said something that was very near and dear to my heart, Mike, when you were talking about the integration with your rates, with Bloomberg, maybe Reuters, is that the processes that SAP has worked with, you've spent so much time integrating with these areas, it's more of a plug and play, if you will, where I've dealt with other systems and processes in my life before that was a very painful and difficult process to get the data integrated and accurately integrated. So that was
and the cost, right? And the cost of working with an SI to develop a custom solution to import these and validate the data that's coming in. So absolutely, I feel your pain, and a lot of other customers do as well. And I think that's why SAP has come out with this.
Exactly, and I think folks forget about the cost that's associated with building those interfaces and the pain that goes through it, unless they've felt it enough times.
Yep, absolutely.
So we can go on to start going on about our. It's so exciting because there's so much to be had. But I wanted to get now into the mitigation.
Let's jump over to. Let's jump over to Haresh real quick because again, I want to point out in each of these spaces, the fantastic work that SAP has done around this data, but believe me, folks, this puts everything at your fingertips. Haresh, talk a little bit about what SAP has done on the cash manager side.
Sure. So, and as you can see up in the top, we have these different tabs that are sort of reflecting on a day in the life of somebody in Treasury. You can structure these apps in such a way that you can structure them in exactly the same sequence as you run your day-to-day operations. And that makes it quite easy. I would come in the morning, for example, and look at my bank statement monitor to see if all the bank statements have successfully loaded. Once I'm seeing 100% instead of 19.3%, which is quite low, I'm ready to position my cash. Once I position my cash, I'm able to decide whether I need to fund an account or maybe make an investment or defund it. So all those decisions are now coming to your fingertips by just reflecting on your day in a life and arranging these variety of different apps in the way you would structure your day. So that makes it quite powerful. And these are standard delivered in the sense that we have standard delivered profiles which bundle these apps together. So this is what I was referring to when I said transformation through best practices that SAP delivers. You can just adopt them and run your business as if you're running your own business without changing anything.
Yep, that's what I like. All right, thanks. All right, Kim, let's talk about risk and risk mitigation.
We've got a lot of discussions here. This last half of our discussion today on risk, which is very important to corporations and Treasury in particular. So Treasury risk management solutions from SAP really do give you the tools to identify, assess, manage, and mitigate your foreign exchange, your interest rate, and your commodity risks as well. It really helps control your working capital and financial risk. You're managing your company's liquidity, you're mitigating your risk by optimizing that straight-through processing, integrating your cash flow transactions, your commodity positions, and your market data. I think we keep on saying throughout this discussion today, straight-through processing, but it's true. I mean, that's what you're getting now. So, and also you have in the third box over, you have your simulation capabilities to model severity of your risk. You can increase the agility of your Treasury risk management mitigation processes by using these end-to-end analytics to automate your Treasury processes, integrate those cash flow analysis, your business planning, centralize your bank account management. You can get that real-time visibility of your bank balances, so you can also look at your currency exposures. Or you can do your analytical, the last box here, your analytical information, look at it in a graphical format and have that drill down capabilities into specific transaction, look at all those related cash flows, monitor those risk positions, your commodity price changes, your currency conversion rates. So you can really develop those compliant hedge accounting strategies, and you have that full audit trail, and you can also look at limiting your exposure. And if you look at it across the bottom, you can access that in the cloud-based systems with all your trading platforms, and you have your regulatory reporting requirements. You have all those tools that will help you support your IFRS 9 and your EMIR and your US GAAP. So the solution really can help you stay compliant with these regulations. And it's a very powerful tool.
It is indeed, yeah. So cash is king, as you said. How do we manage and mitigate our risks?
I've been saying this my whole career, and it really is. So, with your risk mitigation with cash, this really covers the area of your cash management, your payments, and bank connectivities that we're talking about here in this. And so we create a global cash visibility in real time. And we do this by looking at a number of things, by looking at, can we consolidate those cash flow data? You can do that with using your SAP and non-SAP systems into one single Treasury platform if you need to. You can also look at reviewing your KPIs and execute decisions without having to switch between your various systems. So a lot of beauty of what we've done for our clients. You can also centralize your bank account management, including on the overdraft limits, your analysis of bank risks, and then processes. So you now have all of your payments and your receivables, all your bank statements all in one place. And of course, most importantly, again, dear and dear to my heart, is improving those controls and compliance with all those embedded tools and workflows. And if you look at the pictorial here, you'll see that we're talking about all of those different types of payments where you're managing all of your bank accounts, you're capturing those bank balances, you're forecasting, you're planning, your progress, your progress payments and your risk, your bank message transmission, and it's all across making sure you have full integration and screening, you have full governance and control straight through to your banks, whether you're using multi-bank connectivity, or you're going bank to bank, or you're using your EBIX, or you're doing any other version of connectivity to your banks. And it's all done very securely.
Absolutely. And maybe, Haresh, you can take a moment to comment. Across the bottom here, we know all of the processes, but let's, risk is about managing the risk, managing control. We have these tools down here, business account manager, we have business integrity screening, governance and control. What is SAP doing to ensure using these tools, the security?
Sure. So just a quick summary of some of the things that are listed at the bottom. The process that you see up above around cash management, which is managing bank accounts, capturing balances, and so on, those processes are completely integrated with our broader solution set, which includes the GRC tool set, for example, where you can establish internal and external rules and policies within SAP and let the system control these processes for you. You can create heat maps, you can create alerts, you can create messaging to the relevant party if something is beyond the limits or thresholds that you have established. And that creates these processes to be to run in a more controlled fashion, and you know exactly what's going on by monitoring some of these dashboards, which are also available as a part of the integrity screening and governance and control functions.
Great. Yeah, and I know that we hear a lot about that. We've met with several customers who've asked those questions, so thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about operational risk.
Operational risk. With operational risk, it covers the area of, it's very important in the compliance in Treasury. And we actually like to look at it with a holistic approach and looking at risk mitigation, because when you're using this, we're trying to prevent any kind of issues and exposure to risk. So we're looking at, if you have what if you have lack of enterprise-wide visibility? You're not going to have that visibility into your cash. You're not going to have that ability to have risk management processes around that, your cash. What about cyber risk? Looking at how can we prevent breaches of your internal and external processes and systems? Or you have, disconnected landscapes, so you don't have the proper workflow and approvals. I mean, if you're not doing straight through processing of your payments or any of your payments, it doesn't just have to be accounts payable payments or even Treasury payments in itself, and have those built-in workflows and approvals, you're not going to have full control of your cash and making sure that payments don't go out of the door unapproved. Looking at, different multiple parties that you might have in your ecosystem, that you're not sharing the information across the board. Payments from one area is being managed by one entity and managed differently somewhere else. If you don't have that full visibility, it's not connected, you're not going to know where your cash fully is. Or of course, you also want to be careful about any kind of breaches in compliance of any of your policies and procedures. You have to make sure that we're fully in compliance with our SOX regulatory compliance at any time. So with that hub of S/4HANA,
can I just make one more comment on compliance breaches?
Sure,
I know this is something that is on everybody's mind, and that's why I thought it was important to mention it. As governments around the world are helping businesses survive through this crisis, they're offering loan guarantees and they're offering credit to vulnerable industries. Now, in many parts of the world, these loan guarantees are offered under certain circumstances, under certain conditions. One of the conditions that we have seen is many of these companies have to periodically deliver their cash flow forecast. And unless you have built mechanisms to have that cash flow forecast accurately available, you are not going to meet those standards. And that will deprive you from having access to those kinds of loans and credit guarantees from the government. So just one real life example where, the compliance to some ad hoc regulations can also be supported by SAP Treasury platform.
Oh, that's a great example, Harish.
Very good example. And if you don't have your information in one place, you're not going to be able to comply with that.
Yep.
Exactly. By the time you're able to put it all together, you're past the due date.
Yep.
Exactly. And I was actually working on we're working on some demonstrations for another client, and that's one of the things that we're going to be showing is how you can actually have that planning, that clip, and see that full visibility of your planning and your liquidity forecasting all in one place, real time. and now this is actually one of the other areas I wanted to talk about, which is risk mitigation as it relates to your transactional risk management, which is managing my debt, my investments, and my treasury risk effectively. You know, within the different tools that we have within the SAP systems, what we're able to do is we can perform all that on the fly, and then Harish and Mike will get into this a little bit more and show you a little bit more and talk about it. But we have the on-the-fly analysis and do all those extensive overviews and drill downs. We can actually have the end-to-end life cycle management for our debt and investments and risk management. We have those real-time positions and to be able to do our risk valuations real-time, not waiting for the information to come through to the next day. It's real-time. We can also have perform our hedge accounting for our risk support for IFRS or US GAAP. And of course, we have full business integrity across through our system with all risk governance control using our GRC and other cybersecurity avenues that we have embedded within the system. And that's including with looking at when we're connecting straight through with our trading platforms, our multi-bank connectivity for making our payments and advices with the banks, or even when you're talking about bringing in market rates. Harish, did
Mike,
you
you
want
and
to
I
add?
talked. Yeah, and also Mike. Yeah, well, go ahead, Harish, and then Mike, you can comment as well. Please.
Yeah, well, I was just going to just make one comment. I think if you look at this reflects the end-to-end straight-through processing that we always talk about. You know, you have everything coming into the central place, which we call SAP Treasury, and you don't have to go from one screen to the other, one system to the other to do your business. You can have it all done in S4 Fury screen that you have available from SAP.
Right.
Mike, you and I talked about this again last week as we were prepping for some that we're doing with Stephanie and team. Share some of the thoughts you have.
Yeah, so just to expand on this a little bit, so we do definitely have this whole end-to-end process where we can capture all of our financial information, right? But now that we have it captured, how can we analyze that? And this is where, you know, SAP Treasury, and I think we're going to get into this in the next slide.
Yes.
We can start to look at all of our transactions in our portfolio as a whole and see how the market conditions can influence that. So if we have market data shifts and different scenario analysis that we can run and stress test our portfolio to see, you know, if any given event takes place, what is that going to do to our liquidity? What do we all of a sudden now have a liquidity gap that we need to start to account for or start to plan for? And SAP market risk really provides that financial modeling, if you would, for all of your underlying transactions that the system captures and processes.
Absolutely. Speaking of that, why don't we move to the next slide? Great lead in, Mike. Thank you.
Yeah, with the risk, this is really very important, our risk mitigation with using our risk analyzer within SAP. And there's a couple of different areas. Mike's going to go into a lot more detail on this, but the three different areas are credit risk analyzer, market risk analyzer, and the portfolio risk analyzer. Credit risk analyzer was one of the areas where I used to focus most of my time on, and within that area, with the counterparty risk, it describes the danger, loss, and the value of our receivables, you know, due to a worsening of the creditworthiness of our business partners, which, you know, is something that we have to keep an eye on right now. And counterparty risk is going to also arise when either the country, the business partner, or their transaction currency becomes insolvent potentially, or that they're suffering in issues where they can't fund their own businesses and their credit is actually becoming negatively impacted. Or we could have our a market risk. We can individually define portfolio hierarchies to be able to analyze that risk according to our underlying factors, looking at our exchange rates, looking at our interest rates, our prices, our volatilities. So with the market risk analyzer, it really does contain a lot of analysis that we can look at data at any given point, such as mark-to-market valuations or any kind of other dynamic evaluations. And I wanted to turn this over to Mike because he wanted to get into a little bit more depth in this to give you a little bit more feel of the power of the risk analyzer.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, we're running a little short on time, so I just wanted to, I mean, you really did cover the highlights of it. And I think we're planning on even setting up another, webinar to dive deeper into some of the risk analyzers and talk about how we can start to use this financial modeling to kind of weather this crisis. Again, it really, the market risk analyzer is really a place where you can start to stress test your entire portfolio and to see where you do have shortcomings, and even looking in the horizon. So, okay, in 1 month I am expected to be paid back, X number of dollars, but if China's currency moves by 10 basis points, what is that going to do to the US dollar and how strong that is? And these are all the different scenarios that we can capture and run over and over and over again, pulling them into value at risk and cash flow at risk analysis to really make educated decisions on our liquidity and on our portfolio.
Absolutely. And I think of a recent customer conversation that we had as Bramasol, and if you think of the marketplace for lessor accounting as well, look at the cash flow implications as we look at credit worthiness. Just out of these companies leases, whether they're automobile, furniture, so it's a great tool for them to have as well. So, correct. You I walk us through some of the great tools from a risk perspective that SAP has provided in terms of really getting a sense of what's available on the desktop.
Yeah, I mean, the intent of this slide is just to show you a realistic SAP screen, which sort of has pretty much everything that you would need to do in a day of your life as a risk manager. And, you may not use all of these apps, but if you read through the labels, they will resonate pretty well and, align with your day-to-day activities. And, you start with the dashboards, you have market data, crossing, you have exposure management, you have hedging if you are doing the hedging for your risk, and then it just takes you to the whole life cycle from left to right and top to bottom. And that's basically the intent, to really reflect on all the powerful apps that are available to run your day-to-day life. You may or may not use all of them, but they really offer a complete solution set for you.
Sure. And here are some great data. Maybe you can, how you drill down and what you can see.
Exactly. This is basically a drill down into the very first app on the previous screen, which takes you into some of the graphical elements. But again, these are little applets from where you can go into specific details that Mike was referring to just by clicking on the top. And you can see visually over here, go into the details, and it'll take you to the actual transactional level data. This ability is hard to get when you're running your treasury in isolation.
Right. You're not going to get this, and you're not going to have the kind of complete holistic picture, if you will, if you are running a standalone treasury. This is really of SAP to provide that integrated view, right?
That's right. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And again, to your point, you can look at what we talked about, the borrowing and investing. Similarly, I think you have, a desktop here that I can look at. What is my maturity profile? I can look at my debt and investment analyses. I can analyze my net present values. And if as you walk us through, you can click through. So maybe you can talk, what kind of data do we see here, right?
So again, this is a drill down into the maturity profile, and up in the top, you have this very high level analysis. You can do it globally, you can do it regionally, whichever way, is suitable for your business. And then the next layer in the middle basically is a drill down into, depending on the selection that you make up in the top, and it sort of shows you how your debt portfolio is laid on time zone and also by bank. And there's another layer below which, if you choose to, you can also see the specific transactional data under each one of those bars. And as you go around clicking those bars, the transactional data below is also being refreshed on the fly. If you wanted to, you can select it, send it out to somebody else through email or to any other mechanism. So it's quite powerful.
Fantastic. Yep, and we're going to spend some time in the future talking about and going through some of these analytics and dashboards. So we just give everybody a flavor of what's there. And here, of course, you have even more dashboards. So we'll spend some time in the future talking about these in more detail. But take a look at them because there's just great. One of the areas, maybe comment quickly on working capital, SAP's focus on that.
Right, and again, just very quickly, working capital management is the broad umbrella under which your cash management activities fall, right? And more treasurers are being made responsible to look at working capital and not just cash in isolation. So all of these different powerful apps that you see on the screen basically contribute to a treasurer's function of managing working capital better. And that's basically what you'll get from using these apps.
Great, thank you. And here's some more details as you drill down. So we'll be some time, I believe, Haresh, in the future about working capital management. And
sure, we'll do that. Absolutely.
So Kim, why don't we quickly wrap up? I appreciate the folks who are hanging on there. We apologize for the issues we had in the beginning, but we'll be wrapping up.
Yes, so again, I think we kind of actually covered this. So we misread with the risk mitigation and treasury risk management. The benefits are really, as we were just talking about today, is adding the value to provide that insight into all our value-added risks, looking across all our risk opportunities that we could have by looking at, now that you have visibility of that information, looking to see where you can actually monitor risk, what's going on, what's driving your risk, looking at any kind of key risk indicators and doing any kind of analysis and proper reacting upon what you're seeing with that information from your analysis, and looking at how can you actually minimize any kind of unnecessary losses that you have. Now with that visibility, you can get full control over your treasury processes, systems, and obviously your cash.
So to wrap up, maybe I'll just run and wrap this up for us. I want to thank Kim, Mike, and Haresh for taking the time out of what I know is extremely busy schedules they're working on with clients. Today we saw, different types of risk. We talked about finance, security, geopolitical, and business continuity risks. We talked about the importance of managing that and how SAP helps. Kim and the team did a great job of showing us the different treasury and risk management solutions that are available to you to look at things like your cash, to look at your exposures, and to manage the security. We talked about streamlining processes, centralize, optimization, agility, and visibility. We touched on the concept of comply, optimize, transform, wherein you look at your business and start to create the foundation and build optimization and transformation. And then we talk a lot about risk mitigation, and we'll do some more in more specifics about that. What I wanted to say is consider your incremental projects to get some short-term gains as you think through. You don't have to get huge projects out of this. Look at the incremental opportunity, look where you can gain some gains. Bramasol can offer you assessments. We'll come in, take a look at different aspects based on our experience. Kim has over 20 years of experience. Our team is extremely experienced. We can look at different opportunities for you to look at either cash, your AR, AP, how that affects your cash. We've done analyses on your business, your banking communications. We can help you with your foreign exchange. So just reach out. We are here to help you understand and how to manifest the benefits that we've seen from SAP. So to really the benefits, I would start now. We know that a lot is going on as we adjust to the changes that we see in managing risk, managing our business and the business continuity challenges, but there are ways out there for you to automate processes, gain insights, and improve ROI. So with that, I thank everybody. I thank the team for being on the webinar. I thank all of you for joining us. We have another webinar coming up on Thursday. We're going to talk about central finance. one of the tools that SAP has to help you maximize the benefit from your existing platform while increasing visibility and control of finance. And we'll do a kind of a treasury flavor on that. And then next month, we'll be talking more about helping our customers with other areas, such as looking at profitability. We'll be doing an M&A discussion, and we'll also be doing a series of videos and webinars, short-term ones that you can look at to help you maximize your benefit from SAP. So thank you, everybody. I hope you have a terrific day. Stay safe, stay healthy, and together we'll be looking for great opportunities in the future. Take care.
Thank you.